This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online platform that helps you find a therapist that will match your needs. BetterHelp offers live video chats, open discussion, conversations with real therapists in real time if that's what you need. I personally love it and have used it now for almost 2 years. I would really recommend, if you need someone to talk to that is not in your family or your friend circle, that you reach out to betterhelp.com and you will receive 10% off if you use my code BGP. So again, that's betterhelp.com/BGP to find the right online counselor for you. Hi, welcome to Big Girl Pants Podcast, where we talk about health, wellness, careers, parenting, relationships, and everything in between. I am your host, April Melton. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Big Girl Pants Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. This is Jessica. Do you have a new last name?
Dawson.
It's the same. Okay, sorry. Jessica Dawson. So you've actually been on the podcast before, but some things have changed. I believe your first episode, you came in 2019 and we discussed all things like digital marketing and all of that.
We did.
Do you remember? Okay, cool. That was a long time ago.
It's flying. It's crazy.
I know. 2019 was a long time ago, almost 4 years ago.
I know. And so much has changed. We've got babies now.
Yeah. So catch all the listeners up since you've come on since 2019. Some things have changed in your life, including the most recent change, which is why we are not in studio today.
Yeah. So since 2019, a lot has changed, as April mentioned. So I'm still doing digital marketing, still running teams and leading an amazing group of very talented individuals. They're kind of my second baby, I guess. But outside of that, recently I had a daughter. She's, I guess recently, but she's about to be 20 months and almost 2, which is crazy. It's just, again, time was going so fast, especially when you have kids. It seems like it just flies. And, when I was pregnant, I have just this amazing group of women around me. I had a lot of trouble getting pregnant. We tried for 2 years. We did fertility treatments, and the third fertility treatment of IUI, which is like the step before IVF, took, and it was great. But along that way, it was tough, mentally. And I had so many of my great girlfriends cheering me on. And then once you're pregnant, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm pregnant. Everyone's celebrating. But there's stuff that pops up with that, too. I had placenta previa, which means that I could start bleeding. And I also have a blood disorder. So that kind of made it more scary. I could spend weeks in the hospital if something went wrong. Thankfully, nothing did. But again, pregnancy is hard, even though it's kind of in the media. It's all like, oh, beautiful, big parties, lots of balloons, all those things. It's like on a day-to-day basis, it can be very uncomfortable. And so, again, I had a lot of mom friends who had been there and done it before. I wasn't the first in my group to have a baby. And then when I had Harper, a couple of my girlfriends before I had her were like, hey, have you heard of the fourth trimester? I'm like, well, I thought there was just 3. What is this? And they're like, well, yeah. And, some of my girlfriends are a little more conservative when they talk, they're not going to get into it. I'm more of an oversharer. I'm like, just give me the juicy details. I need to know.
I need all the deets.
Yeah. And so then when you're in postpartum, right after you have the baby, your hormones are crazy. You're spewing milk everywhere. I mean, it's coming out right and left. You're just, fluids are just running down your legs, from when the water breaks onwards. It's weeks of that stuff. And I feel like no one really told me about it. I read some stuff. I got some gifts in my registry for adult diapers. They were pink and had a little bow on it. It was kind of cute. I was like, oh, these will be fun. Yeah, I needed those. Didn't know how much I would need those. I was rocking those things in the house it was going out of style, Victoria's Secret, but adult diapers style.
Depends. Right? Okay, yeah. Depends is where it's at.
Exactly. We can make anything sexy, I'm sure, but
For sure.
Outside of my husband Ryan, no one really needed to see that.
No.
So,
but it's fine.
Again, I had some prep, and then you get through it, and it's all of these things, your hair's falling out. You're like, is this normal? I'm Googling things. There's all these mommy groups and online, but again, I had all these women who'd been there and done that and given me a lot of confidence in what I was going through. And it hit me one night that not everyone has that, right? There's some women that's the first girl in their girl group to get pregnant, and, or maybe they're really young and they just don't have a mom around, or, someone who's going to help guide them or give them the heads up of like what they're going to experience. And there's all of these materials out there around the baby, or like when you're pregnant, or what the baby's going to do. But what about mom? Like, such a huge important factor in all of this, because the mom and her personal health is a huge part of how the baby does, and her relationships and all those things. And so one night I like just got on this thing in my head about like, what if I wrote something like this? And then I was up until 4 a.m. just laying there thinking about the first chapter, and I knew I couldn't go to bed until I got it out. So I just whipped out my notes on my phone and just started writing the intro to the book. And then I've been writing all year, and I'm publishing a book called Postpartum, The Expectations and Realities of the Fourth Trimester, which is very exciting for me. And, I really hope that it's that girlfriend guide to what women are going to expect, like when they're done expecting.
So there's so much that you just said there. So much, like so much that we could fill like probably 3 hours. But I want to start first with what you said about getting pregnant. So like, I haven't even, because, after you have a baby, like your entire life has changed. Your entire schedule has changed. I mean, even just recording this podcast, it's like, hey, nap time is between 1 and 3. So that's a perfect time for me. Whereas like when you were single or when you were just married and you didn't have kids, you were like, yes, I can do whatever I need to do. Like no time is off limits. Like I'm totally free.
Yep.
But like, I want to talk about what you said about trying to get pregnant. So how did you, and this is mostly for the listeners because I can share a little bit of my story too, but how did you know that it was time to like start having those conversations about the struggle with getting pregnant?
Yeah, we started trying, and trying is fun. It's fun, but then it starts
Until it's not.
It becomes a chore, right? And then you start tracking your ovulation, and you start getting out those testing strips, and then you start going in your head about the app, and oh my God, there's a 24-hour period where my egg drops in my ovaries, and I gotta go, and then all of a sudden it's not fun, right? And it's not this like exciting thing between you and your husband. It becomes a job, and you get in your head about it because you're constantly testing your urine, to see when your levels are up or they're down, or which way in that. And then there's a 2-week wait period after you ovulate before having, like, am I pregnant? I can't drink during that time. Like, do I need to make changes in my lifestyle? And then all of a sudden it's that time where you're like, is this a negative test? Is this a positive test? Is this a false negative test? Is it a false positive test? You don't know. And, it's just so stressful, and it's every month until it happens. And we had a lot of life things going on. We actually bought a house that was a flip, and it turns out it was a flop. So we're going through a lawsuit. We were going through all these things. And I think there was a lot of stress involved. And so with all of that, we just weren't having success. And it was month after month of all of this stuff and not working. And so reached out to gynecologist, and she said, get together with the fertility center. And so, again, each month is passing, and we're just like, let's have conversations. So we did IUI, which is, it's like basically the turkey baster method. It's he
like
drops
intrauterine insemination.
Yes. And it's not too invasive like IVF is with all the hormones and those things, but there's still shots involved. You get your blood drawn every couple of days. Like, it's a lot. You got to go in every couple of days and make sure you're tracking. And we did that 3 months in a row. And they said about after 3 months, if this isn't working, we'll go to IVF. And thankfully, the 3rd month, it worked. And we got pregnant with Harper. And
That's awesome.
Thankfully, it was a relatively easy pregnancy outside of my placenta previa thing, which was more of a just scary, but didn't actually turn into anything, thank goodness. But during that time, I was like in all of the mom groups on Facebook, and there's so many resources and other women going through the same thing. And it was really nice to have that community because I didn't know what was going on. And
so
Ryan,
nice.
Yeah, my husband
is just so necessary.
Yeah. And so having other people that were able to like impart their wisdom or give encouragement is really important, I think, for mental health, and just knowing like there's a community, even if you don't know them in person, you're going through similar things in such a delicate and emotional time frame, especially for women doing IVF. Those hormones, girl. I mean, you just had a baby, which is perfect time for this conversation.
Yeah, it is perfect. That's why when you reached out initially, I was like, oh my gosh, how perfect. Because I haven't recorded an episode about having a baby, about my experience, about even really like about IVF or anything yet. Because ideally, I would like to have a fertility specialist on the podcast so we can really do a deep dive and talk about it. And like, when is the right time to talk to your care provider about like how long it's taking you to get pregnant? Should you be getting a test? Like all of those things. But yeah, we went through a similar situation. I got my IUD taken out in November of 2020, and we're trying, but we just were not getting pregnant. So I was like, okay, there's got to be something wrong, because removing that, after like 5 years, it could take a couple of months, but like it was taking like a year. So I was like, all right, there's a problem here. So we did the HSG, which is like, they send some ink through your tubes and through your uterus to make sure that everything is free flowing. And my tubes were blocked. Well, and a little known fact about IUDs is that they can potentially cause scar tissue, so they could block your tubes. And that's what happened. So I had to do IVF. So we went through that whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I haven't even had really time to like update and like give everybody an update on a baby, because it's hard. Like right after you have a baby, man, you just don't have like anywhere near the amount of time or flexibility in your schedule to like do anything. And it's, for me, my daughter is 9 and my son is 5 months. So like my 9-year-old, it's way easier with her. Like she's autonomous. She can shower on her own. She can sleep in her own bed, like all these things. So much easier. But yes, going through all of those things and then having that like tribe of women that knew what it was like, and going through that, because you definitely feel so alone. Like it's the worst.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I'm so glad you had a successful.
Oh yeah. It was so.
It's a lot of stress. Well, and it's so many women now that need fertility treatments. When you're growing up, you watch all these movies and it's like, don't have sex or you will get pregnant immediately. And, but
no, and you're like, I could have just been winging it the whole time. What would have happened?
That, that health coach did not know what they're talking about.
Clearly not. Thank you, 7th grade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and how are you doing, postpartum? Because as soon as, the baby comes, there's so much to that period of your life, emotionally, sleep wise, your
so
body
much.
Trying to get that back into like.
I'm trying so hard. I will say, obviously, and I don't like, how old are you?
I am 34.
Okay. I'll be 36 next week or 2 weeks from now, on the 19th, whatever. So I've actually had 3 kids. So when I was 21, I got pregnant, and my boyfriend and I both agreed that we were not in a place to raise a baby. So we placed her for adoption. So I went through postpartum with placing a baby for adoption. Then I had my daughter, who's just turned 9. And then I have my son, who's 5 months. So with my daughter, I was like 27. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was a lot easier than now at 35 and 30, 36, whatever. And I will say, like, this postpartum has been not easy, but I also lived a very healthy lifestyle before I got pregnant with him. Like, I worked out every day. I, drink lots of water. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. I don't do anything like that. So like getting ready to get pregnant with him, was a lot easier than like, let's say even when I was in my 20s, and I was like, we were still going out, we were still drinking, we were still not necessarily partying, but we were having way more fun than I do now, or I did, a couple years ago. But going through IVF, all of those hormones, I gained like 30 pounds just going through IVF before I even got pregnant. Whereas like typically when you get pregnant, you gain like 30 to 40 pounds, right? So I gained 30 pounds before I even got pregnant. And then I gained weight on top of that too. So like that's been the biggest like mental hurdle for me. But as far as like having the baby and like adjusting, like, yes, it's hard when you don't get sleep. That's hard. But like everything else, like it's second nature because I've already had one.
Yeah.
Like, it's so nice this time. And I enjoy it more. I stress less. Like, I look forward to like daily bath times. I look forward to waking up with him in the morning. And like, it's not that I didn't look forward to those things with my daughter, but it was my first. And like, I didn't really understand like how quickly it would go
Mm-hmm.
because it did. It just flew by. But this time has been exponentially different. Like, so much better.
And, you know, now that we're experiencing you through it, it's like you have so much wisdom to share with those women who are about to go through it. And that's the whole point of this book. And I think, you know, a big part of the postpartum experience is giving yourself grace because, you know, everyone's like, oh, getting back to my body pre-baby. Your body's never going to be the same. It goes through this fundamental change in growing a human, right? So you think about what you're doing. You're literally growing another human. You birth that human out of a much too small hole. Okay. Let's just be honest. This hole is not big enough for this.
Tiny. It's tiny.
It is. And, or like me, I had a C-section.
Same. The incision is tiny too. Let's be real.
Oh, so mine is not tiny, and I keloid heel, so like it's nice and red and it has all these bumps. But, you know, I think part of it is accepting the fact that you're going to be different and accepting the fact that, like, you know, your body is amazing. It's just so incredible that it can do all this. Men can't do that. I mean, it's just something that we, as people born with ovaries and uterus, can do. It's just incredible. And then we can produce food and be self-sustaining for these little babies.
So crazy.
Yeah. And like, as long as you want, whether it be right up front, you stop, or as long as you want to go, you know, you can breastfeed them and do all these things and your body can produce that. And I think, you know, we have so many expectations to be skinny or whatever, but I think like we just have to look at our strength for being able to go through all this, for being able to handle the mental complexities of, again, IVF or getting pregnant and then like going through pregnancy. I even recently, like, we're trying for number 2 and I had a miscarriage like 3 weeks ago. Oh, and it's really tough.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. You know, and it's like 1 in 5 pregnancies end in miscarriage, whether people know it or not. And it could be even higher than that because women who are not tracking just think it's their period. But, you know, it's hard. And like, we're going to try again and hopefully we'll have success. I'm very confident we will. But then like going through pregnancy and having a baby, we're just so strong mentally and physically. Like, I think it's something that a lot of people don't, you know, appreciate as much. And when you do have a different body and a different way of working and a different level of strength afterwards, I think that giving yourself that mental grace of like, hey, I'm doing all these things. Look at how amazing I am. And then saying, I've got time to get back to where my goals are. But the first most thing is nurturing my baby, you know, and then giving myself a break. Like, oh my God, I just did all this. Like, I need to give myself a break.
I know. And you do all of it. And then for the working moms that go back to work immediately, and then even for the stay-at-home moms who are staying at home trying not to lose their sanity, like, because financially it makes more sense for them to be at home with their baby all day, but they feel like they're losing their mind because they're literally hanging out with babies all day. Like, I get it. I've been on both sides.
And stay-at-home moms, so there's a study done by Welch's in 2018, and it basically showed that stay-at-home moms work the equivalent of 2.5 actual full-time jobs.
Of course they do.
If you think about it, they like start at 6:30 in the morning or whatever, baby wakes up hungry. Then they have to get them ready for the day. The whole day, well, their spouse maybe can go like work out and then go to the, you know, they've got their commute,
work themselves, eat a meal by themselves,
be with other human like adults and those things. Like, mom is there working with her baby all day, and then, you know, the spouse comes home and they're like, I need to decompress or whatever that looks like. And the stay-at-home mom, she's cooking dinner or cleaning or whatever. That doesn't stop at 5. Like, kiddo doesn't go to bed till 7:30, 8, 9. I mean, depending on whoever's. So like, your day doesn't stop until then. And then you probably have dishes or laundry. Like, when do you get time for you, you know? And then, by the way,
time for you.
I know. And then like, moms who have babies that are still up in the middle of the night, there's all that time, and maybe baby's up for 20, 30 minutes, but you got to get up and like get everything prepped and whatever, clean. And then you also have to do that on the weekends. So you don't get the weekends off. It's just constant, right? And like, if you think about the load and the pressure, like, one big part of the book is just talking about giving yourself space and time for you, you know, like that could be 5 minutes to just put your hair up in a bun that doesn't look as messy as usual, or time to like pick out an outfit,
put your eyebrows on, put some mascara on, like do something, whatever it is that makes you happy.
Yeah, go for a walk, like, you know, get a Starbucks, whatever that looks like, but like doing something for you every day, even if it's just a couple minutes, like really helps reset the tone and shows like helps
Yes.
you show up better for your family too.
Yeah. And it's like, I was watching something the other day. It was like a reel or a TikTok or something where this mom was like, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I leave the house every day. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm always going to do kid things, but like I make myself leave the house every day because when I leave the house every day, I get dressed. When I leave the house every day, I brush my teeth. When I leave the house every day, I get ready. Like I do
Right.
all the things that I would normally do if I had like a job or if I was going to work, but like I'm actively doing something. And I can like respect it and understand and sympathize because excuse me, I'm pounding the soda water. It's so good. Um, but like I recently changed jobs and so now I'm 100% work from home.
Mhm.
So I have childcare. I have a nanny who comes in, but she's not here, 40 hours a week. She comes from like 9 a.m. till 3 p.m.
Okay.
during the bulk of my work hours. If there's anything that happens after 3 o'clock and I need to figure it out, I can normally figure it out. But she comes between 9 and 3. So, but even if, right, like something happens, something comes up and my baby needs me, I'm still here, right? So it's like I never leave the house really during the week, except to go to the gym in the morning, but that's it. And like I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to do that because my husband has to leave for work at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. So if I want to get my me time out of the way, I have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
So, and then I come home and then I'm working from home and my baby is here and whatever. And it's like so many of those days, like I sympathize with those moms because you start to feel like the walls are caving in. Like, we got to go. I got to talk to people. I got to be out. I got to be social, especially for people like me. I'm an extrovert. I'm an extreme extrovert.
Wait,
But
what?
yeah, what? So weird.
You?
But like, I know that what's important is for me to be here with him right now, to be here with my baby. Now, do some moms have to take their kids to daycare? Absolutely. And that's hard too.
Oh yeah, I'm one of those moms, and
Yeah.
you take her in 7:30 and then I start work at 8 and then I pick her up at 5:15, 5:30, and it's
Yeah.
sad. There's so much of the day that she's not around and we get pictures and those things, but I miss her, but at
It's
the
not the
same time,
same,
I
but
can't
you have to work.
yeah, I mean, before she started walking, I could get things done, but now it's like she's just
It's
jamming.
impossible, man. She does everything.
Oh yeah, and she's climbing over it. I mean, it's a blast, but trying to get work done, it's tough. And either way you go, I think there's a little bit of mom guilt, but at the same time, I think you just have to say, "Hey, I'm doing this for them." At the end of the day, whether that be staying at home and giving them all of that attention and those things, or if it's working, it's like, "Hey, I'm showcasing what a woman in the workplace does, instilling those types of values." And I think both ways, it's hard work. It's just how you mentally prioritize it. And again, a lot of that trying to shift the focus. And I think it's so important, getting out of the house. I remember when I was, my C-section definitely like took me out for a little bit, a couple of weeks, and I'm usually go, go, go too. And so it took me like 2 weeks to drive down to the end of the driveway or walk down. And granted, we had like a pretty long driveway, but still I was like, oh my goodness.
No, I get it.
Yeah, I think like one of the best things and the worst things about COVID is the comfort of active wear and just the sheer amount of it available now. It's like
Athleisure is my wardrobe. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, but like I love living in that stuff, but putting on real clothes, it's like, oh, okay, I'm an adult. I can get out. I can look good, and sometimes it's just that has that mental shift for you.
Oh, for sure. And when you leave the house feeling confident, like even if you're 20 pounds overweight, even if you're 30 pounds overweight, or even if you are the same weight that you were when you had your baby, leaving the house, blow dry your hair, put gloss on, like you feel better about yourself. There's zero denying that.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, so, okay. So not every mom, right, writes a book after they have a baby. So what else was it about postpartum that inspired you to write a book? Because it's not just about like those initial, few months or few days or few weeks or, the boundaries that you have to make with certain family members or whatever, right? Like what was it that really inspired you to want to create a guide?
Yeah, I think I've always loved to write. In seventh grade, I was voted most likely to write a book. I remember that, like specifically holding up my little paper. But at that point, it was like romancy type of, fairy tale things that I would write down.
Yeah.
Never got anywhere. I think I found a binder a couple years ago back and I read it and I was like, oh my God, why? But I had a travel blog for a while because we love to travel. And I think I've always loved to share stories and provide value for other people. Like, I'd have people say, hey, you traveled here. What did you do? Can you give me this person's phone number, the travel guide or whomever, and it was just easier for me to like journal it. And so I could I could relive my trips and then provide, resources for people who knew me and like wanted to do similar things. And so I think I've always naturally liked to write, and that's kind of a creative outlet for me. And so, again, one of the things I like most is like, again, helping people and taking my experiences and helping them shape better experiences for them. And so I think a lot of this was inspired by, again, those women that really helped me. And like, if I could do the same for other women in a larger way by having a resource for them, like that's amazing, and I think that really helps. I'm a huge proponent of encouraging and empowering other women and individuals, like doesn't have to be women, to really make the most of their time and be happy with themselves and really try and like instill confidence, especially through difficult times. And so if I can share some of my stories, some of them in the book are like really kind of funny or embarrassing probably for others to tell, but I don't care. Like, if it makes you laugh and helps you understand like, oh, all of my hair falling out and going down the drain, is part of it, then like you get those crazy wispies, right? Like as your hair starts to grow back
and
then,
all the baby hairs. Yeah.
There's a reason for the mom bun because like you just got hair flying everywhere until it all out. I didn't know that until I was in it. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. It's like,
what is this?
Yeah, I know. And so like if I could again provide that for other people, that just for me is great. Like honestly, this is not, I don't know if I'm going to make any money off this thing at all. I don't really care. It's like, hey, these other women that are getting pregnant I'm like, hey, here's my book. Like I've sent it to probably 20 or 30 people before it was even published. Like it's in a Word doc. I'm like, sorry for the spelling errors, but you're about to have a baby. If this is helpful for you, like take it. And I
know there was one part, I can't remember which chapter it was on, but I was looking through a couple of parts last night to try to pick out some of my favorite like parts so that I could use them as talking points for the podcast. But there was one piece where, and I don't remember specifics just because I don't want to put anybody on blast. I do remember specifics, but I'm not going to say them. But there was one part about boundaries, family members, boundaries with your husband, boundaries with everyone, because everyone focuses, this is the biggest difference for me, I think, between your book and let's say like what to expect when you're expecting, because we all read those books, right? Because we're like, we're moms. We're going to be moms. This is our first time. We're going to learn. We're going to do all of it, right? I read What to Expect When Expecting with Chloe, like a long time ago. I read like Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, that hippie stuff, like giving birth in a forest. I read, there was another book and it was called, oh gosh, of course I can't remember. When You're Talking Next, I will look it up because I want to quote it. But it was more about like statistics in pregnancy, like whether or not it's really harmful to eat lunch meat, whether or not it's really harmful to eat sushi, whether or not it's really harmful to drink wine, whether it's really not harmful for your baby to have screen time, all these things in this book. Because as women, we're like, we want to do it the best. We want to do everything that we can possibly do. We want to be the best moms we can be. So what are we going to do? We're going to educate ourselves. That's what I did and reading your book was so helpful because all of those focus on the baby. None of that focuses on us. Like
we need to have
0%.
Yeah. And like, for boundaries, it's so important. Again, it's that mental health element, right? And my husband's family, they're in Houston and I love them. They're amazing. And they're so supportive. And like, we were talking about, okay, we want them to be here for Harper. At that point, we lived in Dallas. We've recently moved to Colorado. But anyways, that's beside the point. So they're in Houston. We're in Dallas.
Humble brag. We moved to Colorado. We live in Colorado.
Oh my God, it's amazing. But outside of that, we're like, we want them to come meet Harper as soon as she's here, and like be there. And again, like you watch all these shows and I mean, you get a lot of this stuff from there. Like parents are there during the birth and whatever. And it was kind of during COVID. So, there's still COVID protocols. When we were in the hospital, I actually had to wear a mask while I was like interacting with my doctors. If I hadn't had a C-section. Well, actually, I was wearing a mask during the C-section. Yeah, I mean, I wore a mask
even in labor. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And so, there was some of that. So like not the family really couldn't come to the hospital. Plus our room was tiny. So we were like, okay, well, we could have them come up and stay with us the first couple of weeks. And then I was like, I love my family. However, I'm going to breastfeed. And I know it's going to be kind of crazy. My boobs are just going to be out. Let's just talk about that. And I don't really feel like my father-in-law really needs to see that. And I also don't want to feel uncomfortable if I'm walking around in the middle of the day trying to breastfeed her at night and they're in and out, and so it was just kind of like, why don't we, instead of having them up immediately, take a couple weeks or however long that is and get some time just to acclimate as ourselves. My parents were closer at the time. They were 20 minutes away. So it wasn't really a problem for that. It was really if we were going to have people stay with us. And so we're like, let's give ourselves a couple weeks to really see what it's like to be parents. And thank goodness we did, because I was a mess. My hormones were great. My mom wanted to come over for dinner for the first time. And they're like, we'll bring dinner, which sounds really helpful because at that point I'm not cooking, I'm just surviving. Yes. And she goes, what do you want us to pick up? Which is a pretty easy question. However, you haven't met my mother.
Postpartum, it's a little overwhelming too, because you're like, I don't know what I want. What does everybody else want? I don't know.
You want to please other people. And my mom, she has opinions. So it's I know she's asking me what I want, but it's really I also have to make sure it's what she wants.
What do you want, Mom? I
gave her 3 options and she didn't want any of them. And I literally was so overwhelmed at trying to figure out where the hell they could pick up food on the way. And I just started crying. I'm like, I don't think they should come over. And this is 2 days postpartum. I don't think they should come over. I want them to be here, but I'm so overwhelmed. I can't figure this out. Plus everything else.
Dinner.
Oh my God. Even now I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because I just felt so I was drowning, in all this weight of trying to figure out the schedule, how Harper needs to eat and when she needs to sleep and where did the bottles go and cleaning everything, which thankfully Ryan did a big part of, but it was just so much for me and I couldn't figure it out. And so I think Ryan ended up texting my parents. It's hey, here's where you pick it up, or just figure it out. She can't handle it. And so they showed up and they brought food and I cried. I was I'm sorry. I just didn't know what to do. And they were like, it's fine. We ended up having a lovely night. It was the night they met Harper. But, it's those things that
real.
Were
so
easy.
real.
And, it's those boundaries. I want to please everyone else and I'm sure you do too. When people come over, you're okay, I'm about to host. I want to make sure they're happy. But at this time, you need to be selfish. You need to say, what's going to make me, I am trying to, one, heal my body. I just literally gave birth to a human, but also you have this massive gaping wound in your uterus that is trying to,
and you know what's so crazy about that? I think that so many women don't understand that. Mm-hmm. I think that so many people don't understand that. Men don't understand it. Women don't understand it. I think that probably 85% of women don't realize why they're bleeding after they have a baby.
So,
I'm just bleeding. It's just normal.
Many women are a baby, but you also have to birth the placenta afterwards, which detaches from your uterus. So then you have this massive wound that is open and bleeding that is healing for
an entire organ that your body grew on top of stretching out your uterus to the size of a baby.
It is the only organ that you can grow that isn't in existence before. And then, it grows in there and then
it literally just forms out of nothing.
I know. And that's the afterbirth. And again, people don't talk about that. But that's why you have the beautiful mommy diapers, right? Because you are basically bleeding or, you have all this fluid that's coming out of you for weeks after you have a baby. And then if you had a C-section, you're healing from that, which is another massive, they go through 7 or 8 layers, excuse me if it's not the right amount, but 6, 7, 8 layers of muscle to have the baby come out. And
right. And it's major surgery.
Yeah.
It's the only major surgery where you're allowed to be discharged from the hospital and go take care of something else.
Yeah.
Your child. Mm-hmm. At no point, any other surgery, they'd be you have to go to physical therapy. You have to go to this. You have to go to that. No, they're have fun with your baby. See you later.
You get 2 or 3 days in the hospital, even if you don't do that. But and it's your core too, which is how you stabilize the rest of your entire body.
How you do everything.
Oh, girl. So our bed is kind of low, thank God. I couldn't imagine if it was higher, but trying to get out of the bed when I had a C-section, I was roly-polying over. It was so funny. I was trying to use my legs as a weight to kick myself over without using my core.
I made my husband put ratchet straps on the bottom of our bed.
There you go.
Because I had to pull up on the ratchet strap so I could sit up and turn and get out of the bed.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And it's these things that, again, people don't think about. And when you're about to host people at your house, you have all this stuff that you're trying to do and take care of yourself, and then trying to figure out where
you're wearing a diaper. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. So it's one of those things that like setting boundaries is so important, and giving yourself the time to like figure out what you need to do to set yourself up for success. Like I know it can feel selfish, but now's the time to be selfish because you are raising another human, an individual. And we had an instance where like there's some family members that didn't want to get the shots needed in order to be around our child when they're young, because it takes some time to get them vaccinated. And like, let's just say they came over and Harper got sick. Well, they could leave. And you know what the repercussions would be? Harper would be sick. If she has a fever over 100.3, we have to take her to the ER and then make sure she's okay. She could have like hours in there. Then there's a financial impact of that. Like it's not a small thing, you know?
And it's not without damage, right? Like that's a huge risk.
Yeah. And so it's like, it seems like, oh yeah, just come over. It's okay if you're not this, or this, but it's not. And like those people don't understand how it's kind of selfish for them not to think about the repercussions for the baby and the mom and the dad who are going through so much,
Most people are thinking about themselves, not anyone else. They want to meet your baby. They want to be there. They want to do that. And I will say, I think that this new, we're millennials, but like Gen Z, like my younger brother is 27 and his wife is pregnant now. And so I really feel like they have this like beautiful ability to exhibit these boundaries and like these rules and these guidelines. Whereas like our boomers, we kind of struggled a little bit with it, with like, are we gonna, like, is that rude? Are we able to say that? Are we able to draw these lines? Are we able to draw these boundaries? And it's like, yeah, and we should be changing this. We should be making sure that we are comfortable, and our husbands or our partners, whomever that may be, a woman, a man, whatever, everybody should be supporting us in this moment. Because so many times we are expected to be the ones who are compromising. And this is like the one time in our life to not compromise and to make sure that you are healthy.
Because if you're healthy, it will translate into a better response for your baby and how you show up. And I think the partnership piece is huge too, right? And that's another central theme to the book. It's communication with your partner and who's helping you. And that could be, again, your like husband or your wife or, whomever identifies as what, or if you don't have a person, if you're doing it on your own, it's your family or your friends or whomever's there in your support group to bring you along. But communication about your mental health and your physical health with them is huge. That's a big piece of that, and the more you can do before you have a baby to work on communication, like the better off you'll be, because once the baby comes, you're so tired, both of you. I mean, there's a huge piece of this on the partner too. Like they're also not getting sleep. They're probably stressed. They don't have much maternity leave. They're going back, and like they have to figure out how you're doing, especially if you're crying over, selecting restaurants, like that can be kind of triggering for them too. So, and I think thankfully, and kind of along what you were saying earlier, is like society is progressing to a point where the partners are getting much more involved, which is amazing. And we have to keep vocalizing that and keep normalizing what happens to women, which is a big part of this book, and talking about it, because if you talk about it, it becomes more normal, right? But for partners, like having them show up in a big way of like helping and understanding the load on the person who just gave birth, helping do the dishes. Like Ryan and I have always been kind of 50-50, where I'll cook dinner and he cleans up. And that's the same thing with baby. I cook food and he cleaned up the bottles, right? Like, so we were really, it was nice because we had established boundaries of who was doing what. So if they weren't done, it was on him, right? Like, but if my load wasn't done, then that was on me, and Harper would probably be crying about it. So, but it's like,
so, there's that thing.
Exactly. But I also think we have to recognize the partner also needs some grace as well, because they're going through a lot and trying to navigate all of this, and they haven't had the bond like we have growing a baby for 9 months. You get a little ahead of the curve. Like Ryan didn't really understand what it was like until she came out, and he's always been a very relaxed person. So he's like, regarding kids, he was like, well, if you ask me if I want more responsibility, the answer is really no, but I want a kid. So he's like, well, we're going to have kids because you want kids. And so, through the whole thing, he was like, oh, okay, this is exciting. I can feel her, moving, whatever. And the night she comes out, he looks at me and he's like, okay, we had so much trouble getting pregnant. So if the doctor says we can't start for another year, maybe we try like 2 months earlier before that so we can start for our second one because it's so magical. I need another one like immediately. I'm like, excuse me. And then we come home and he had to go to Target for something. And I get this call and he's in a panic and he's like, I'm in the baby section and there's so many bows. Can I buy her bows? And if I do, like what bows can I buy her? And is there a specific kind? I'm like, babe, just buy her any bows. You pick them out. Of course, he comes back and they're like 2T bows. So like they're huge and they just don't, but it was so endearing. He just like fell in love with her immediately. And he's just like reshaped into a different human. But I think it's important to recognize like it's not just the woman who experiences all these changes, it's also their partner because they're going through it, and it happens kind of like a car accident for them because they haven't
Literally. They get it head on.
Yeah, exactly. How's your husband been transitioning through all of it?
It's a big, well, and because I had a daughter before we had brother, right? Like he knew what it was like to be around a kid, but like not around an infant. Like, how do you handle that? How do you manage that? And like, for the most part, we were both very like independent, self-functioning adults, right? Like similar to what you said about your husband. You made the dinner, he did the dishes, right? So like he did the laundry, I cooked the food, like, you know what I mean? We were very complementary. Well, when you have a baby, me can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I literally lay there, I rest, I recover, and I nurse the baby. So I know that that was a little bit of a transition, and he is like borderline OCD. He loves everything clean. He loves everything organized. He loves everything to be perfect and in its spot. And like giving himself the grace to know that like, hey, it's really not the end of the world if we're not able to do all of the dishes immediately, all of the laundry every single day or whatever. Like that was a big transition for him. But like now that I joke because when he's home, so he got 12 weeks of paternity leave.
Oh, that's great.
Which was magic. Like he took the first 8 weeks, and then he just took an additional month after I went back to work because I started a new job and I was working from home. So I needed him to help me. But I joke now that like brother likes when he just wears him. Like he likes to sleep on dad. He likes to play with dad. He likes to be with dad. Like, and it's so different. I think for them, like you said, like it's like head-on collision. Like they immediately get to realize, oh my God, I'm a dad.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this thing is mine. Like I'm responsible. And like, whereas me, I'm like, yeah, I knew it was coming. Like, this is not anything new. Like, it's a baby. Right. And when he cries, I got to pick him up, it's just a thing, whatever. But it's been great. And he's like taking the dad role and just running with it. And then like it's just so sweet to see like him like get stressed about because in the beginning he kind of struggled because I had a C-section, and then his lungs, I had too much amniotic fluid.
Okay.
I had something called polyhydramnios, which I'd never heard of. And like I did a pretty extensive research on pregnancy and all that, had never heard of it. It basically just means I had too much amniotic fluid. So I had 4 liters of amniotic fluid in my belly. So it looked like I was pregnant with twins. But when he was born, because he was a C-section, his lungs never were like fully pressed out of the birth canal. So none of that liquid was able to come out of his lungs. Where normally when they pass through the birth canal, their lungs are squeezed. So any additional liquid would just come out. Well, his didn't. So he had to go to the NICU for like 12 hours. And that was like, the whole experience was just not what we thought at all. But after going through that and then bringing him home, he had a little bit of a difficulty gaining weight in the very, very beginning. So like my husband was just like, is he big enough yet? Is he too little? Is he going to be too little? Like, what's going on? Does he need help? And I'm like, don't worry. Like, we'll make it through this. And then now he's just like the biggest chunky, sweet baby ever. And he's great. So
he's so cute. The pictures you sent me yesterday were adorable.
So cute.
Yeah. Especially with the first, there's so much anxiety because you just don't know, and it's like, okay, I know the gist now, I know they're going to be okay.
Dude,
like
when you have your second, you're just going to be like, it's a walk in the park. Like if you have a boy, you'll be like, oh, it's new because you have a boy. But like, aside from that, you'll be like, we're good.
Yeah.
We know what to expect. We know what to anticipate. We know what to build up to it. Like we know to stock the fridge and freezer with lots of food because when we have the baby, we're not going to want to cook or like get a meal prep service or whatever. Like there's so much that you now have the ammunition or the experience for. But I think that's the other good part about your book is like for all of these moms, because if we're being realistic about the United States and the culture that we have here, like we don't grow up in generational households.
Mm-mm.
We don't grow up with our parents in the house. We don't grow up with our grandparents in the house. So like as women and as moms, especially first time moms, how are we supposed to know what we're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like literally the only resources we have are books or friends. You know what I mean? Like, and you have your family. They don't live in the house with you.
Well, and not everyone has a family that's willing to talk about this stuff.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Or they don't have that support system at all. Or again, like they're the first ones going through it. And so like I'm hoping that this resource gives moms a heads up. And the whole way it's written, it's very conversational. Just like we're having now. It's like
it's perfect.
I'm talking to my girlfriends about this that are pregnant, sitting on the patio over a glass of wine, or if they're pregnant, obviously not wine, but maybe like sparkling water, you know,
non-alcoholic wine, whatever.
So in right now. But I mean, that's the whole point. It's like, let's talk about this like girlfriends. Let's get into the nitty gritty, messy details of things that you probably don't want to talk about with maybe your mom or whatever.
Like Perry bottles and adult diapers.
Exactly. And, you know, it's also different because a lot of, you know, moms then, like my mom, you know, it's been 34 years. So like things have changed, right? Like babies aren't sleeping on their stomachs anymore. It's all about back sleep. And like in the crib, you can't have anything, like nothing but the sheet and the baby and a sleep sack, right?
God, when I see the pictures of where I was sleeping, I'm talking crib bumpers, blankets, stuffed animals, like all of it.
Oh yeah. I mean,
like, where was I? Like what's going on?
The thing is, like we've read all this, so we know, but grandmas don't. Or grandpas don't.
So I got to read the PDF version of your book. When will it be like published?
Yeah, so it's coming in the next, I think, 3 weeks. So it's just, and yeah, it'll be published. But it's
oh my God, I'm so pumped. So whenever it's available, I want to. So it's coming in 3 weeks. I will publish this podcast episode probably next week. But when it comes out, I will republish it with the book details and I'll share it so that everybody that has listened to the episode, they can find it.
Okay.
And they can buy it. Where will you, like, how are you going to sell it on Amazon?
Yeah, it's going to be on Amazon and then ebook. And then I'm going to have a website where I'll like sell other things, but I haven't gotten that set up yet. So I need to do that. But yeah, it's coming.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Picture of it too, right? So yeah, you can kind of see what it's going to look like. So yeah, I've got a couple of things, but I'm basically going to soft launch it. And at that point, it'll be like 99 cents for like the first 2 weeks. Get a whole bunch of people to buy it and like get reviews and stuff. And then I'll up it to probably like, you know, $16 or whatever it needs to be.
Yeah, but 15, $16. Perfect.
Yeah.
What, aside from like, let's say who you wrote this book for, obviously this is going to be something that I'm going to give to my sister-in-law who is pregnant now. Because for me, it's really important because I only want to empower women who are pregnant.
Yeah.
To make the best decisions for them, as if I wish someone would have like been the older mentor sister for me, you know?
Yeah.
Who would you say this book is good for?
Basically anyone who's about to have a baby, whether that be for the first time or if it's been a while. And it's great for registry, you know, recommendations. So if you have a friend who is about to have a baby, even if you haven't, like this is a great way to set them up for success. So, you know, anyone like if they're going to a baby shower or even a sprinkle, just a refresher on all of these things is super helpful. So I'd say that's perfect. And then even for partners, you know, it's a really great way to understand what the woman's going through. So there's not a lot of materials out there for that. And there's a whole section around partnership, like for the partner to understand. So that's we can say that. And then I think I talked a little bit about my mom. So I want to like wrap up with like, you know, I really appreciate her and all those things. Like, so
of course. Yes.
Talk crap about her.
I mean, I wasn't even able to have my mom here with us, but my mother-in-law came and stayed for 2 weeks. And when I tell you the godsend that woman was, like, just, she made sure my water was full. She made sure I wasn't hungry. Like, she made sure if I needed snacks that I had the snacks. Like, she was so courteous, so respectful. And like, I think for a lot of women, because most of the women that are going to listen to this, of course, I'm going to send it to any mom that's currently pregnant or trying to get pregnant. But like women that have already had kids, they understand like how important it is to have that support system if you are lucky enough to have it. However, if you're not lucky enough to have it, there are these things called postpartum doula. They are not cheap. They are very expensive, but it was something that I had planned for if someone wasn't able to come and stay with us, because it is such a huge transition. I would say if you have to choose,
you can even like get night nurses that help you at night. So they
night nurses
at night and you get 8 hours of sleep, but they feed the baby, when they wake up and everything like that. So even that can be huge.
And like,
go ahead.
No, you go.
I was gonna say maybe we just talk about like some of those resources and then what the book would be good for.
Okay. Well, yeah, and like not only like night nurses and stuff like that, but like I would say if you have the choice between maybe planning like a very expensive nursery, I would plan more around your postpartum care than spending money on a nursery. Like, of course, have all of those things, 100%. But like for the first like month, like your baby is like sleeping with you, near you, in a bassinet right next to you. Like we didn't even make a nursery at first. We still have like his bedroom. It basically just has a bunch of boxes of diapers in it and all of his other baby accessories because he's still in the bassinet in our room. Like, and we have a dresser with all of his stuff, but like.
Well, it all depends on when you want them to leave your room. Like for us, one of the things I didn't realize about Harper was the noises she was going to make. And I'm sure you've got the same thing going. Like, you think they're going to sleep soundly. No, they're like little gremlin noises. And you're like, oh my God, are they okay? And they sound like, again, the movie Gremlins, they're just making these crazy noises. So we knew that we weren't going to be able to get enough sleep if she was in with us that long.
Yeah.
So after about a month to her room, which was right across the hallway. So we could still hear her. Like, we got better sleep with that. But, a lot of parents stay with their kid in their room for months. And like, that's perfectly acceptable and great. But to your point, you're not going to get as much sleep. So if you can invest in like that extra help, whether that be a doula or even the night nurse that comes in, stays with them over the night, just having some of that help or family to give you a nap or do an extra load of laundry. Like I know my mom was incredibly helpful with all of that kind of stuff. I mean, she would come in and like all of a sudden everything would be done from vacuuming to, the dishes and everything, or just taking Harper for.
Like, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I remember
I love you. Thank you.
Yeah, I went over to her house and she had Harper for an hour while I went and got a massage. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh,
yes.
Mom.
Yes, I know.
Mom, you're the best.
You don't think about it, but with a baby, you're constantly hunched over, right? Like you're breastfeeding, you're hunched over. You're carrying them, you're hunched over. Like you're doing the laundry or the dishes, whatever, you're hunched over. And so your muscles. Like
you went through not just for C-section moms, but like for vaginal birth moms too. Your body has just gone through battle. Like, and then after that, you're just like, dude, the first massage, I just told the massage therapist, I was like, just beat me up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Only you got to make sure you pump or breastfeed right before you go, or else like rocky boobs and you're gonna be laying on them. They're just, I had
like, why can't I lay down? So
yeah. Susan was like, can you bring me a towel? Because I was like on the leak, like when I flipped over. But it's part of it. So, and God, that massage is so good.
I know, it was the best. I was like, this is what I need for myself. But yeah, I'm so excited. Like, I'm so excited to share this book with everyone. And I'm so excited for everybody to find you. Let's say when the book comes out, are you going to promote on your social media, or how should someone try to find you?
On social media, and then you can find it on Amazon. So just Postpartum, the expectations and reality of the fourth trimester. And then there will be a website live, but I'm going to put it on my social media and, try and get it out there in a larger way and hopefully, get it picked up that way. And podcasts. Like this.
Yes. Share all the podcasts. And if there's any like, maybe like, after you release the book and stuff like that, we could bring you back on and we could talk about it, like launching a book and doing all that stuff too.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about, because like self-publishing is also a big part of this too, which is
writing a book. Like,
I know the process.
Yes.
I'd love to talk about those things. So I'm happy to come back, and anytime you want to chit chat, April, I love it. So
I love it too. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, go out there and get the book for your friends, for your family. And it's great for registries, and for baby showers or sprinkles. Any mom that's about to become, or any expecting mom that's about to become a mom, or if they've even already been a mom, but they're about to have another, it's a great resource for them. And
I would say even for partners too, like even for partners, because it's so much better. It only levels up your emotional intelligence and the empathy if you know what your partner is about to go through. And
there's a whole section for
that way.
To help set them up for success and like around communication and what the mom is going through. So it really helps them get a little bit more detail without the mom having to like say, here's everything. So, if there wasn't a lot of resources out there for partners, even when I was trying to get Ryan up to speed, everything I found for men was like basically picture books, which is a bit of a joke. I mean, it's a little insulting if you have to be honest.
And a little degrading, right? You're like, really?
Or these like super macho books. And I'm like, he's not that kind of guy, And so this, again, there's a whole section for partners to help set them up to understand how to nurture their partner, how to communicate what they're going through. Just be like, hey, watch out for, this, and this, because it's going to be a time. So here's how you can best support, right? And also take time for them. So it's great for partners. It's great for moms to be, great for gifts and those things, but definitely look it up on Amazon. It's there in ebook form, so you can get it for your Kindle, or even
tell us the title one more time.
Yeah, it's called Postpartum, The Expectations and Reality of the Fourth Trimester. So again,
by Jessica Dawson.
By Jessica Dawson, that's correct.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much for coming, okay?
April, I've had
and I look forward to have you back.
Yeah, well, just so you know, you're a great mom. You're an amazingly strong woman for going through all of this. And again, don't forget to give yourself some grace in the process. But thank you for having me. And I'm so happy to be here and excited to share this with you guys.
I cannot wait for this to come out.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.